This restaurant is above the Arctic Circle in Northern Norway. In a place where almost nothing grows, this chef and his team are crafting one of the most unique tasting menus in the world using only Arctic ingredients. We're gonna be touring the property and the farm, chatting with the chef himself, having their 18-course dinner, and we'll even get a special surprise at the end. This is Kvitnes Gård. It's way up in the reaches of beautiful northern Norway near the Lofoten Islands, and the first thing you notice when you arrive is the beauty of the property. Not only is it a fine dining restaurant, but it's also a farm with animals and plants, and you can even stay here overnight in their rooms as well. Their tasting menu costs $185 per person, and dinner for two with an overnight stay will run you back $650. And we were actually able to sit down with the chef and owner of this whole property.
My name is I'm the chef and owner at Kvitnes Gård in Northern Norway and been running the restaurant for the last 4 years.
We'll find out more about the unique challenges of running a restaurant in the Arctic in just a little bit, but first, he offered to give us a little tour of the property. Walking around this property, you really start to get a sense of how connected to the land the restaurant is.
So we haven't bought any herbs or salads or vegetables since June 2020. Nothing meat either. So we have 90 sheep during the winter, and we're getting around 120-130 lambs.
I mean, if you want a constant supply of ingredients here, you really have to cultivate them yourself. You walk around and you see all kinds of animals like sheep, cows, chickens, and even their giant pig that they brought in to breed.
This one is 40 kilos?
400 kilos.
400 kilos? That's a lot.
And because it's so remote, you truly have to make the most of your ingredients, whether it's preserving things in their cellar or even turning the bones of animals into charcoal that you can use for other purposes. Everything here has a use, and it seems like Arctic cooking is about maximizing your resources as much as possible.
First thing that I noticed is how much this feels like you're really living on a farm and coming into someone's home. All the little details, from taking off your shoes when you enter the house to just being able to roam the property, interact with the animals, and really treat it as your own space, is amazing, and something that I haven't seen too much at other restaurants.
Now, dinner is just around the corner, but I wanted to find out a little bit more about what it's like to cook in the Arctic and where the restaurant really came from.
By being this far north, of course, we can't grow everything like asparagus and pineapples. Still, during summer, we have sunlight 24 hours a day. It's a bit colder, but you get sun, so much sun. All the vegetables produce so much flavors. You can just pick them, ferment, pickle, store them. When they're the best, we can keep the taste at its best as long as possible as well.
Also, guests can stay here. How did you kind of think about that? Because it's not super common for guests to be able to stay at the restaurant and kind of extend that experience beyond just what's on the table.
It's so nice because you're going into a different zone, so comfortable, so relaxing. You're not going to a bar after dinner. We're having our guests to take off their shoes when you're coming to the restaurant, putting up knitted socks. You can see their shoulders just falling down and they keep relaxing.
I'm actually really excited to try dinner tonight because I feel like I'm going in with very little knowledge of what's about to happen. I think a lot of these restaurants that are on the World's 50 Best list, Michelin Guide, all these sorts of things, you kind of read a lot about before you go, so the surprise and the fun is almost a little bit ruined. But here, I don't really know what's going to happen. I've heard good things, I've had friends come here and say that it's good, but I don't actually know what the cuisine is like, I don't know what we're going to be eating, and that kind of makes it way more fun.
After chatting, Halvard got up and immediately started to go prep for dinner outside. He's so dedicated to his craft and just seems to love running Kvitnes. And as a guest, getting to see a sneak peek of what's to come, whether it's smoking a halibut or preparing the bread course, is such a unique way to interact with your meal.
So without further ado, let's eat dinner.
This is one of the most unique menus that I've ever had, simply because of the surroundings of the restaurant. It's got intense, rich, bold flavors which mirror the landscape and even Halvard's personality. The first few starting bites feature pancakes with fermented Arctic char and a cracker with potato and truffle seaweed. But then comes a really fun little dish which is cured pork served on a little piggy itself. It's a bit of a morbid dish, but hey, it made me smile, that's for sure. And like I said, this menu is unique. They serve a sourdough bread with smoked cream cheese ribs and whale meat from the tail, which was surprisingly fatty, almost like a bluefin tuna tartare. After this, the meal quickly evolved into an exploration of Norwegian ingredients. Langoustine with blackcurrant leaf and spruce shoots that's ultra buttery but also herbaceous, which cuts through the fat really nicely. Scallops with, you guessed it, brown butter that are rich, smooth, and a little bit tangy from some preserved greens. And of course, you cannot forget the bread that was being made earlier with local butter.
I'm a sucker for bread and butter. The grains on the top give it a nice little crunchiness, but it's quite a dense bread. Almost like a cake. Really, really delicious. It's getting everywhere, but it's phenomenal.
You can easily see that the Norwegian diet is heavily focused on proteins and seafood, with every single dish so far featuring some sort of meat. The next section was focused on seafood, with dishes like their red fish with crispy fried skin, strawberries, and rhubarb, but also weirder combinations like this delicious turbot that was paired with mushrooms and topped with charcuterie to add a little bit more fat to the dish overall. And they even had a dish with skrei, or Norwegian cod, a sauce featuring sago, a typically Asian ingredient, and a fake truffle that was made with truffle seaweed and egg yolk. In Northern Norway, they tend to like drying the fish to preserve it, which gives it a firmer texture than a fresh fish and is something I haven't had much of before. But then came one of these signature dishes at Kvitnes, no matter how much Halvar hates using that word.
We're having like this halibut that's aged for a month and salted for 2 hours and then smoked for 5-6 minutes with a lot of dried hay. So it's a lot of powerful smoke. Fed it in front of the guests, and we're serving it with a sauce made out of almost burnt butter, almost burnt cream, and fermented mackerel that we fermented this last summer.
So we have this halibut with almost burnt butter. That's really, really complex in flavor. Get a little bit of that caramelly flavor from the almost burnt butter, almost burnt cream. The halibut is beautifully tender. And the mackerel in that sauce, beautiful.
You finish with a collection of different sheep preparations, including these deep-fried neck and ribs served on the bones themselves, and a leg of lamb with different variations of potatoes and a sauce of the lamb itself. It's a soft but slightly gamey dish that hits you with flavor and is a great way to end the savories. For dessert, you'll get dishes like this sea buckthorn dish, which was super light and refreshing, and an interesting second dessert to say the least.
A dish inspired by something I got from my grandmother. A blood pancake. So it's lamb and pig's blood pancake filled with blackcurrant and salted leg of lamb. We're making a powder made of roses, a cream made of pickled roses, and an ice cream that we made out of goat yogurt, meadow sweet, and spruce shoots.
And the last little bite is this incredible deep-fried bun with cloudberries. Genuinely, this was one of my favorite bites of the night. It's a meal with bold flavors, unique pairings, and it's the perfect encapsulation of Arctic cuisine. But even though the night was over and I went upstairs to my room, there was still one more surprise waiting for us the next morning.
We have one more surprise. We're gonna have breakfast. We had an amazing dinner last night. Hopefully breakfast will be just as amazing. I'm sure it will be. And then we'll be on our way. And unfortunately, we'll have to leave. But we're gonna enjoy some food before we do that.
I am by no means a breakfast person, but this is the way that I want to go out. A spread of meats, cheese, seafood, breads, butters, all extremely local and all incredibly delicious. Kvitnes is one of the most special places I've ever been, from the property to the dinner to the hospitality and warmth, and it's a once-in-a-lifetime experience.